Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sarah and I make videos about movies, vintage shopping, owning a small business, whatever is going on in my life. Today, I wanted to talk about the movie Smile. Basically, a young woman is admitted to a psychiatric facility where she's being evaluated by a psychologist on the staff. I assume she's a psychologist. She refers to herself as a therapist. The nurses refer to her as doctor, I'm assuming. And during the interview, the young woman, the patient, commits suicide in a very graphic and horrible way. And the entire conversation is awkward and stressful and quite creepy. Afterwards, Dr. Cotter, who's the psychologist, again I'm assuming, starts to have these visions, and she starts hearing things and seeing things and experiencing things that she cannot explain logically, and is not able to reconcile what she's experiencing. So I have to say, my very first thought when I saw the trailer for the movie was, oh no, this is gonna be a movie about another internet thing. Some boogeyman from the internet is coming to get you. I do not like those stories. I think they're lazy. This is not that. This is not that at all. This is a malevolent spirit that attaches itself to people via a traumatic event, aka watching someone commit suicide. So she doesn't know what's happening. We are really starting from ground zero. We're not starting with a character that is tangentially familiar with the phenomenon and decides to take the investigative route, where she starts doing more research into the patient that came in to see her, what brought her there. Overall, I thought it was a really good horror movie. It has a lot of modern sort of elements to it. Over and over, the mental health question comes into play, and that is something that a lot of characters and storylines touch on during the course of events when it's something like this. It could all be in your mind. The Ring, The Grudge, It Follows. I mean, that is one of the first responses that a lot of people explore when they experience something new, supernatural for the first time, is maybe I'm stressed out, maybe I'm not getting enough sleep. When that turns out to not be the case, it shakes their foundations in reality. And this movie focuses more on the reality of a situation like this, where someone is experiencing something supernatural and it's malevolent and is being terrorized by this thing, is a mental health professional, which is a very unique take on it, because as someone who knows very well all of the signs and symptoms of mental illness, her character is quite interesting, Dr. Cotter. Not for one second did I believe her and her fiance. I did not buy the two of them as a couple at all. It was interesting, but not for one second did I buy that they were a couple. So they're engaged with no foreseeable plans regarding their marriage ceremony or the events leading up to said marriage. First, I have to say, I didn't know who she was. I was very curious about who the main actress was. Later on, I found out she's Kevin Bacon's daughter, which I was like, sure. Her husband, Trevor, I knew who he was right away. That's a little side note. There's a lot of character development. It's not just her character following clues and interviewing people and moving from like clue to clue without the perspective sort of checking in with her. You'll see her, for example, reading a statement that the patient zero, I'll say, gave about the incident at her school where her professor killed himself in front of her. And then suddenly she'll have an episode where this spirit will be like messing with her, or she'll listen back to her first interview with patient 0, and while she's doing that, this thing will mess with her. So we see all of these episodes wearing her down. We see her getting more and more tired, that she's not able to ignore this thing, that she's not able to pretend like she doesn't see or hear this thing. It's really sort of breaking her down as a person, preventing her from being able to sleep. There are a lot of themes throughout the movie of like mental health and trauma, and she's left with these terribly disturbing memories of the incident, reliving it over and over, and then she starts to have nightmares, and suddenly she's not having them at night, all the while keeping it to herself that she's experiencing these things. Kind of interesting as a character, because normally in horror movies where the female character is a health professional in whatever capacity it is, they're typically warm and inviting and friendly, very personable. She is not. She's got attitude, is short-tempered and impatient with people. Not someone I would typically feel a lot of empathy for, but as far as the actress portraying the character, A1. As events start to escalate and she's no longer able to pretend that she's not experiencing these things, and they start to affect her ability to sleep and distinguish between reality and what's in her mind, she starts to break down a little bit. She starts acting in ways that are out of character, finding the last person who she believes was a victim of this supernatural presence and pretending to be a reporter to speak to his wife. So once she was unable to pretend, it was like all of the things that she used to build up this persona of herself were starting to be peeled away. Just became very desperate to have someone believe her story, to believe her when she says that it's not mental illness, it's not that she's tired or overly stressed, it's that something is haunting me, and finding a way to prove her theory becomes her main goal. And in her quest to find a way to prove her theory, she alienates everybody in her life. Her boss, her sister, definitely her brother-in-law don't like her. Her little nephew, her fiance. So she decides to go to her ex-boyfriend, who happens to be a cop, and ask him to help her access information about the previous cases, thinking that somewhere in there might be a link, some information she just doesn't have access to. And without his character, the story probably would have ended there. Through him, she's able to confirm that there is a pattern. So she has an idea of what it is. So her plan is to isolate herself completely, to cut off contact with her sister and her ex, go to her old childhood home, and try to confront the memories that appear to be haunting her over and over again. And to confront this thing by preventing it from getting what it needs in order to spread to somebody else. So it's all very interesting. There are a lot of themes about mental illness and stereotyping and the effects of childhood trauma. It sort of reminded me of It Follows. It has a very interesting twist on something that is very common. So there are a lot of little interesting details. The fact that her character is not traditionally likable despite her role and her career choice, that there's a story within the story where, as she's investigating and trying to figure out what this thing is, she's also revisiting memories from her childhood, which have a twist in there as well. I think it's a very good horror movie. I would give it a 4 out of 5. I would recommend it. There are some missing pieces to the story, but at this point, I think that if they had taken the time to fill things out, like the fact that neither her fiance nor her have friends, that would have slowed the story down. What I liked about it is that the pace is kept throughout the entire movie. The fact that she can't sleep, or she's having trouble sleeping, she has waking nightmares, she hears things randomly, sees things randomly, experiences things randomly, that time becomes distorted, and those details like that would have slowed the story down. So once the event occurs, we're on a ticking clock, and from there on, it is her moving from one idea to the next, trying to find a solution. Thank you guys so much for spending your time here with me today. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys like the new setup. So let me know what you guys think about the movies. If you liked them, if you didn't like them. Feel free to start a conversation in the comments below, because I could talk about movies all day and all night. And I'll see you guys next time.